Thanks for watching News Channel 8, recognized by the Associated Press as Oregon's best newscast. News Channel 8, where the news comes first.
Crunch time in the GOP presidential race after Bush's victory in South Carolina.
Wait till you see what happens Tuesday night here in Michigan.
We can take this hit.
Peacekeeping problems in Kosovo. New violence brings calls for a NATO crackdown. And a plea to protect a predator whose absence might put nature out of balance.
We cannot afford to wait any longer.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News, reported by John Siegenthaler.
Good evening, everyone. With about 48 hours left before the important Michigan primary, a poll from a Detroit newspaper shows Governor George Bush and Senator John McCain locked in a dead heat. It's a fierce battle that could have a tremendous impact on the future of the McCain campaign, and it comes as Bush rides a new wave of confidence after his big win in South Carolina. We begin our coverage with NBC's David Bloom.
The Bush bandwagon roared into Michigan today, back on track after being derailed earlier in New Hampshire.
Last night we had a big night in South Carolina. But wait till you see what happens Tuesday night here in Michigan.
Believing that he can effectively end John McCain's candidacy with a win here Tuesday, Bush is using the same strategy that worked so well in South Carolina, attacking McCain in hard-hitting television spots.
5 times he voted to use your taxes to pay for political campaigns.
Bush volunteers and paid operatives, making thousands of phone calls, both to get out the Bush votes.
We hope that we can count on your support for Governor Bush.
And to spread negative information about McCain. And in the Detroit suburb of Southfield today, Bush warns his enthusiastic supporters that Democrats here, like Jeffrey Feiger, the lawyer for assisted suicide advocate Dr. Jack Kevorkian, are urging their fellow Democrats to vote for McCain.
We can rally like-minded folks to go to the polls and say to Kevorkian's lawyer, you're not going to get to pick who the nominee of the Republican Party is.
One prominent Republican did defect from the Bush camp today, New York Congressman Peter King, blasting Bush for speaking at South Carolina's Bob Jones University, which critics call segregationist and anti-Catholic.
My little brother Jeb is a Catholic. Is Mr. King suggesting I've got an anti-Catholic bias because I went to a university? I go to universities all the time to give speeches.
Polls show a tight race here, but in the most important primaries to come, Bush is now the clear-cut favorite. On Super Tuesday, with primaries in 11 states, the 2 biggest, California and New York, count only Republican votes in awarding delegates, a huge advantage for Bush. And 1 week later, when 6 more states vote, McCain would face the almost insurmountable obstacle of trying to win in Bush's home state of Texas and in Florida, where brother Jeb is governor. Nothing's a lock, but tonight George W. Bush is once again the indisputable Republican frontrunner. David Bloom, NBC News, Southfield, Michigan.
Now to Senator McCain. After last night's loss, he revealed a tough new tone today because Michigan, for him, is a must-win state. NBC's Ann Thompson is covering the McCain campaign.
Smarting from a stinging defeat in South Carolina, John McCain today in Michigan firing from both barrels.
If Governor Bush is a reformer, I'm an astronaut.
McCain has just 48 hours to try and win what has suddenly become a crucial state. A battle his staff compares to David and Goliath against the better organized Bush campaign.
We didn't start playing in Michigan heavily until the beginning of December. And so they started in July, starting recruiting county chairs and district chairs and legislators. So we had about a 5-month behind start.
John Lloyd, a McCain organizer in Michigan, just arrived last week.
This is going to be a very jam-packed 48 hours, not a lot of downtime.
Only 6 full-time staffers and some 2,000 volunteers in Michigan to get out the vote. On the stump, McCain now draws sharp differences between himself and Bush, painting the Texas governor as a big spender and trying to reclaim the title of reformer.
Unless Governor Bush can identify one spending cut, one corporate welfare loophole we would close, he cannot call himself a reformer.
Between stops crossing Michigan by bus, McCain seems tired, running on just 3 hours sleep. Assessing South Carolina, he acknowledges being beaten up by negative ads, but still says he won't respond in kind.
But I'm not going to stoop to running negative attack ads.
McCain is only going to spend another 24 hours here in Michigan. Then he heads back to Arizona, the other state with a primary on Tuesday. A poll conducted last week shows McCain has a 36-point lead in his home state. But here in Michigan, the race is much tighter. The quick turnaround, McCain staffers claim, works in their favor, giving Bush less time to define McCain with his ads.
We took a punch yesterday, but we get up off the floor, we're fired up, and we're going to win here in the state of Michigan.
Hoping Michigan's more moderate Republicans will accept his message so soundly rejected in South Carolina. Ann Thompson, NBC News, Grand Rapids.
The 6.7 million registered voters in Michigan, land of the Great Lakes, provide a glimpse into the attitudes of a crucial voting bloc both political parties will need this fall. Here's NBC's Lisa Myers.
In Detroit this weekend, the annual boat show. Time to capitalize on bonuses paid in the booming automobile industry. Many of the thousands here will have a great deal to say about who wins Tuesday's Republican primary. Dan Bodner, a Ford employee and Reagan Democrat, will vote for John McCain. One reason, he likes McCain's position on taxes.
Tax savings. So many of those are a joke. They're going to save me a couple bucks a year. Well, if my couple bucks can buy somebody a meal who needs one, I'd rather have it go that way.
Yet Reagan Democrats don't have the clout they once did.
The Reagan Democrat used to represent as much as 15% of the vote here in Michigan. Now it's less than 8%.
So this picture of the swing voter in Michigan elections is as outdated as a Ford Pinto. Now elections here are determined by white-collar workers in Michigan's new high-tech economy. They live in the comfortable suburbs of Detroit, like Oakland County, tend to be socially moderate, economically conservative, and very independent. Paul Tabor sells equipment to the auto industry and leans Republican. His wife, Janet, in public relations, leans Democrat. He leans toward Bush because he thinks he can get things done and win.
He's more polished, he's going to come across, and I think he's going to carry the message once he articulates it in a manner that hits home with everybody.
From an integrity standpoint, I think McCain is much stronger.
The verdict of South Carolina doesn't matter to independents Jerry and Luann Spillane.
I was very in favor of Bush Sr., and I think that Bush Jr. follows along those lines.
McCain is making me pay attention more. I was quite sure it was a strong Bush, but now I am paying attention to what the man has to say.
Here, as in South Carolina, everything depends on who shows up to vote. Pollsters say McCain must convert more of these independents and drag them out to the polls, or Republican regulars will deliver Bush another decisive victory. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Detroit.
So, what issues are resonating with the voters who've already spoken in caucuses and primaries this year? NBC's Jonathan Alter has been analyzing the exit polls, voter surveys done in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening, John.
So, based on the surveys, what's important to Republicans?
Character and values. The particular issues this year are less important than an overall sense of these candidates. So in New Hampshire, for instance, where John McCain won by 19 points, many of the respondents coming out of the polls cited character way above taxes, for instance, which used to be a much bigger issue in New Hampshire. And in South Carolina, where George W. Bush won big, 1/3 of all of the voters were evangelical Christians. And they came back again and again in their comments to this idea of moral values. So those are very important to Republicans this year.
What strikes a chord with Democrats?
Democrats are a little more issue-oriented. 3 times as many Democratic women, for instance, think education is a top issue than Republican women do. They focus more heavily on the economy. They're also interested in some of these character issues, a little more issue-oriented these days.
Is there anything lately in the polls that might give Bill Bradley hope to upset Al Gore?
Well, in the exit polls coming out of New Hampshire, where Bill Bradley lost narrowly, he carried men and younger voters. So looking ahead to this critical Washington state primary a week from Tuesday, which is really do or die for Bill Bradley, if he can expand on that base, he might make a little headway, but he's in a very deep hole right now, John, and the odds are against him.
And back to the Republicans for a moment. If enough independents turn out in Michigan, could they have a big impact on John McCain's campaign?
Absolutely. The independents in Michigan are considerably less conservative than they are in South Carolina. In fact, 46% of the entire electorate there in Michigan intending to vote in the Republican primary describe themselves as moderates or liberals, which could give McCain some hope of bucking this momentum that George W. Bush has coming out of South Carolina.
NBC's Jonathan Alter. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, John.
When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, tense times in Kosovo with peacekeepers caught in the middle. And later in Focus, why one of the Earth's oldest creatures is in jeopardy.
This week, body alert. You have all the signs. Is it a heart attack, anxiety attack, or just gas? How to know which symptoms you can't ignore this week on Today.
Monday, he worked hard, saved, and like 40 million Americans, hopes to have enough to leave to his family.
Well, my kids have got that money, not the government.
A few simple steps now could ensure his children and grandchildren will get the money and make it grow. The truth about retiring smart for your family. Don't miss NBC Nightly News Monday.
Dateline Monday.
That matchbook in the hands of a very young child can burn down and kill many.
When the water hits your face, it's like needles.
You're going to have snow jammed up in your nose, jammed in your ears, jammed in your mouth.
Listen, watch, and you and your children will get out alive. Dateline Monday, 9/8 Central.
Monday on Third Watch, a rookie's mistake brings partners closer together.
I thought he was going to kill you, man.
I know you did. And
I can't move.
a rescue that will leave you breathless.
We'll cut him out.
We're running out of time. Benjamin, come on, you got to stay with us. Get him out of there!
An all-new Third Watch, NBC, Monday at 10/9 Central.
Tuesday, NBC Spotlight Hour starts with Will and Grace. Jack and Will shake up the Today Show, and what happens then? Will have you talking the next day.
Oh, my Lord.
Then Rebecca Romaine Stamos returns. How far will Finch go to win her back? Pretty far. Just Shoot Me at its new time after Will and Grace, NBC Tuesday.
8 months after NATO peacekeepers rolled into Kosovo, peace there remains a goal, not a reality. NBC's Jim Maceda tonight in a town near the Serbian border where daily reality is more like war than peace.
Anger and violence once again in the streets of Mitrovica, a flashpoint of ethnic unrest in northern Kosovo. This morning, as international peacekeepers, including more than 300 U.S. soldiers, deployed into the Serb half of the city, an aggressive house-to-house weapons search turned ugly.
They were beginning to form, and there were some agitators in the crowd.
Several peacekeepers, including 2 Americans, were injured by stones and flying debris. Serb sources say 4 Serbs were also wounded, while European news crews were roughed up by the mob. This is just the latest incident in a wave of escalating tension here. Mitrovica has become the front line in what was once an ethnically mixed city.
This bridge has become a virtual border between a divided Kosovo, Albanians to the south, Serbs to the north. It's a partition that NATO allies did not want, but can't seem to prevent.
This month alone, at least 9 civilians have been killed, more than 20 wounded in a series of ethnic attacks. Last week, 2 peacekeepers were wounded by snipers. The UN, which has an international mandate to govern Kosovo, risked losing control if NATO didn't beef up its presence and crack down on armed extremists on both sides.
The peacekeepers are accused not to do enough, not to act enough, not to be strong enough.
This show of force intended, no doubt, to prove that the NATO-led peacekeeping mission is willing to get tougher here in what many are calling the last battleground of the war in Kosovo.
I'm absolutely sure it will succeed. It's a good operation, and it will succeed the purpose what we are here for.
But so far, few weapons have been found, and with tensions running so high, NATO soldiers remain an open and vulnerable target. Jim Maceda, NBC News, Mitrovica, Kosovo.
Growing concern tonight in Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky about the rising levels of the Ohio River. 5 Kentucky counties have been declared state disaster areas. Streets in low-lying areas of Cincinnati have been closed. Swollen by heavy rains, the Ohio River is 11 feet higher than normal in Cincinnati. Louisville, Kentucky is bracing for a crest 2 feet above flood stage sometime tomorrow. And now to a rare sight, identical twin koalas believed to be the world's first born in captivity. The mother and twins, Milo and Otis, made their public debut today a year after the cubs were born. An average adult koala male weighs 26 pounds. These cubs currently weigh about 2 pounds, but they were born When they were born, each was about the size of a bee. In the wild, koala bears are found only in Australia and number fewer than 8,000. When NBC Nightly News continues, species in trouble under the sea.
Monday on Later Today, why is Jody so excited?
Jody Applegate, come on down!
She's the next contestant on The Price is Right. Go behind the scenes Monday on Later Today.
Decision 2000 on the networks and stations of NBC.
A special must-see TV Tuesday.
I'm back, baby.
Shatner's back on an early third rock as the big giant head.
Bring it in.
On Will and Grace, Jack and Will shake up the Today Show, taking their protest all the way to the top.
I'd like to speak to the president of NBC, please. It's Juliana Margulies.
Then Just Shoot Me, now after Will and Grace, the return of Rebecca Romaine Stamos.
Oh, my God!
Finch's plan involves a pirate suit and a sword that's a little too sharp. All new, all night, NBC Tuesday.
Wednesday is all-new must-see TV on NBC. On the West Wing, it's a White House trip to Hollywood, in a town where money talks.
We're sending you home tomorrow with $2.5 million.
A mogul tries to control the president.
The president can't be blackmailed. Do you get that?
Then, a Law and Order ripped from the headlines. A psycho is killing.
Designer drug causes loss of consciousness.
One victim could still be alive.
Everyone works on this until we find the third girl.
Law and Order after the West Wing, all new NBC Wednesday.
In focus this evening, a call to protect what some consider the perfect predator. Here's NBC's Dan Lothian.
Sharks roaming the deep, feared perhaps as much as they are misunderstood. Ancient creatures, some experts say, now in trouble.
We've seen dramatic declines, 80 to 90% with many species, and we're trying to make sure that we don't see that happen with many more.
Why the decline? Scientists who study sharks blame overfishing. Tens of millions caught each year by fishermen from 125 countries. Of particular concern, the growing practice of removing a shark's fin, a delicacy in Asian countries, then tossing the rest overboard.
There's a sense of urgency. Based on what we know today, we cannot afford to wait any longer.
So last week in Pacific Grove, California, scientists from 10 different countries
The lesson here, I think, is that
meeting to find an international solution. A global net to protect sharks in the deep. Gilbert Van Dykhausen of nearby Monterey Bay Aquarium has studied sharks for a decade.
We're in a position where we're trying to play catch-up, and it's very difficult to do.
What amplifies the problem is the fact that sharks, contrary to what many people might think, are vulnerable because they are slow to reproduce and can take up to 15 years to mature.
Once a population has been reduced down even 50% or more, it may be decades before that population can recover.
Only a handful of countries, including the U.S., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, have a shark management plan in place, but there are holes. And in the open waters, there are no rules. Scientists and lawmakers are struggling to find the right formula to end the population decline. Keith Pope, an award-winning recreational fisherman in Southern California, is a volunteer helper, catching, tagging, and taking DNA samples. Data for scientists who are trying to understand more about the growth and migration patterns of sharks.
They have a balance in the ocean. It's an ecosystem, and everything depends on everything else. And without it, we take some huge chunks out of certain fisheries, then we're going to have some collapses.
While some say this crisis is overblown, there's general agreement. Many shark species need protection. Dan Lothian, NBC News, Monterey.
When we continue, the law and Elian Gonzalez.
Once upon a time, parents worried that their kids might get detention, or at worst, fail a class. Times have changed. There are new things to worry about, weapons and violence. Talk with your kids. Let them know that violence is never an answer, and that they can always come to you, even if they've done something wrong. When the subject is violence, don't fail them.
If you don't clean up your room, the Board of Health is going to condemn it. You make that face again, it's going to freeze that way. If you don't get your blood pressure checked, you could have high blood pressure and not know it and die from a stroke.
The remarkable thing about planning for a secure financial future is, the sooner you start, the easier it'll be to meet your goals. If you're at least 25 years old and not already receiving Social Security benefits, watch the mail for your Social Security statement about 3 months before your birthday. It will show which benefits you can expect when you become eligible. Use it to plan your financial future. The future is in your hands.
If you give me a fish...
If you give someone a fish,
You feed them for a day.
Teach someone to fish.
You feed them for a lifetime.
Give me a fish, and you'll feed me for a day. Teach me to fish, and you'll feed me for a lifetime.
Through Volunteers of America, you can help change lives in your community.
When you look at your kids, it can be obvious that you've passed on the color of your eyes or the curl in your hair. But if you're making racist remarks or telling prejudiced jokes, you're passing that on to your kids as well. You're teaching them it's okay to hate. And that hurts them as much as the people it's aimed at. Because hate destroys.
Now to the custody and asylum cases of 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez, the Cuban refugee rescued at sea in November. NBC News has learned that the boy's father now plans to come here from Cuba to fight for his son's return, but the precise date has not yet been determined. One aspect of this complicated dispute comes up Tuesday at a court hearing on a lawsuit filed by Elian's Miami relatives. Here's NBC's Kerry Sanders.
Does the Immigration and Naturalization Service have the authority to send 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez back to Cuba without anyone reviewing that decision? For more than 2 months, Attorney General Janet Reno, visiting her hometown of Miami this weekend, has said yes. But lawyers representing Elian's relatives in Miami say the government cannot repatriate the boy because his extended family here is claiming political asylum on his behalf.
There might be a claim that this child should have an asylum application adjudicated by the Immigration Service. It all depends on who's speaking on behalf of Elian.
Who speaks for the 6-year-old boy? According to an INS ruling, the closest of Elian's Miami relatives, his grandfather's brother, doesn't have the right to make the asylum request. On Tuesday in federal court, a judge will decide if INS can simply ignore the family's claim. The boy's father, Juan Miguel Gonzalez, has said repeatedly he wants Elian returned to Cuba, a statement Cuban exiles in Miami say was coerced by the Castro government.
To expect that the father, even though he may want to defy the government, would feel free to do so, it's not real. That's not life.
What makes Tuesday's hearing so important is that if the INS is ordered to accept Elian Gonzalez's claim of political asylum, it could make his father's custody demand meaningless. That's because under U.S. law, all Cubans who make it to U.S. soil, except for criminals, are given asylum in this country. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Miami.
When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, the Just Say No movement when it comes to sex.
For one night on one stage, meet the leaders of the digital revolution who are changing our world. The Summit in Silicon Valley, next Sunday on MSNBC.
A Dateline exclusive Tuesday. A woman gives birth. 2 babies, one white, one black. It happened before. Now it has happened again. How could this be?
She called me in the office and told me there'd been a mistake.
Jane Pauley with the shocking story. A Dateline exclusive Tuesday, 9 Central on NBC.
He went from millionaire to winning the biggest cash prize in game show history. Who will be next? Watch a special 21, NBC Monday at 8, 7 Central. Monday on Third Watch, a rookie's mistake brings partners closer together.
I thought he was going to kill you, man. I know you did.
And
I can't move.
a rescue that will leave you breathless.
We'll cut him out.
We're running out of time. Benjamin, come on, you gotta stay with us. Get him out of there!
An all-new Third Watch, NBC Monday at 10, 9 Central.
As children, we believed in the world of fairy tales.
Where are you going?
To work, Dad, like I do every day.
But next Sunday,
Where are we?
I don't know.
Once Upon a Time becomes reality.
Thinking what I'm thinking? This is Snow White's cottage.
Brave Jack.
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Welcome to a land where fairy tales come true.
What happened to Snow White after she married the prince?
But not the way you remembered. And a storybook romance brings two worlds together.
Not sure whether I want to love her or eat her. What is it with you people?
A father and daughter's journey through Once Upon a Time becomes a February movie event.
I always wanted my life to be a fairy story, and now it is.
Oscar winner Diane Wiest, John LaRoquette, Rutger Hauer, Ed O'Neill, Kimberly Williams, Anne Margaret as Cinderella, and the practice as Cameron Manheim as Snow White.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
An adventure that will ultimately take us all to the 10th Kingdom next Sunday on NBC.
Finally, tonight, signs that the message of sexual abstinence being preached by parents and ministers is having an impact. Here's NBC's Soledad O'Brien.
In Colorado Springs, the church doors haven't yet opened for the concert as anxious teenagers mill about. Once inside, to the sound of rock music, 2,000 teens pledged to abstain from sex until marriage. Among them, 19-year-old Andrew Schmidt.
When you're choosing to make, decisions for abstinence and decisions for purity, you feel like you're by yourself. But to be able to come to a place like this and see thousands of other teens making the same decisions we are is an awesome thing.
Since 1994, the number of church-based abstinence groups has grown nationwide, as have secular groups like Best Friends, now in Washington, D.C., and 25 other cities.
Abstinence is important because it is one thing. It's self-control. And without self-control, there can be no self-respect.
Essence Oliver, a high school senior, has been in the program since 7th grade.
I want to go to law school. I want to have a family. I want to just be successful and be happy without the worries of having a teenage pregnancy or getting an STD or having to raise a child without being able to provide for one.
Kids are reporting that abstinence, not having sex, is increasingly seen as a very important option for them. As a matter of fact, for many of them, it's the #1 choice.
The message discouraging teenage pregnancy, being delivered in a variety of ways, seems to be getting through. Over the last 6 years, teen pregnancy rates are down 17%, and the teen birth rate has declined 16%, according to federal figures. In Mississippi, which has the highest teen pregnancy rate in the country, church rallies are spreading the word on abstinence, as is a state-sponsored program. Abstinence, an old message with a new twist, being heard by the nation's teens. Soledad O'Brien, NBC News.
And that is NBC Nightly News for this Sunday. Now here's Maria Shriver with a preview of tonight's edition of Dateline.
Thanks, John. Coming up tonight on Dateline, supermodel Carrie Otis. She hit it big, very fast, and very early. But her fame had a terrible price.
There were a lot of what we call today in America date rapes. I didn't understand that it was okay to say no, and that I could still say no and have that person want to work with me.
From sexual exploitation to her disastrous Hollywood marriage and descent into drugs. Carrie Otis, in a surprisingly candid conversation, talks about the secret world behind the cameras and how she survived it. That story tonight on Dateline. John?
Thanks, Maria. Tom Brokaw will be here tomorrow. I'm John Siegenthaler in New York. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next weekend, if not before.